So my name is Eyal. I'm an engineering team lead at Wix, and I'm here to talk about open source and why I think you should do it. So before we get started, I would like to know how many of you here have actually built your own open source project from scratch, completely from scratch? Okay, so actually most of you haven't, so this is a great opportunity to actually do this talk. Next slide. Okay, so first we're going to talk about why you should do open source, and then we're going to talk about what's holding you back from actually doing your first open source. And then I'm going to give you some tips, hopefully get your first project off to a good start. So it's going to be successful and fun. Next slide, please. And another one. Great. So let's start with why you should actually build an open source project. So first of all, the most important reason, I think, is to have fun. You want to break away from your daily routine. I mean, every day we're building forms, we're doing lists, and so on and so forth. And we're using a ton of open source projects ourselves, and they're really great, but there's also a lot of fun in building one yourself. You can build something completely from scratch and own it completely and basically sail the ship in the direction you want it to sail. It's great for the community because you get to collaborate with other developers and you can learn from them. You can help each other. You can solve common problems that we all have and share, and basically can advance the entire community all together. And of course, code quality is also very important, right? We have bugs and we have issues with security, and the more people look at your code, there's a higher chance that we're going to find the issue and the problem, and hopefully we're going to avoid people hacking into our code. And the feedback that you get from other developers, it also helps you advance a lot. You get feedback from them. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but in the end of the day, you grow and you become a better developer. And in the end of the day, you also have recognition, right? You get to showcase your code. People see your code all over the world, and it will help you hopefully improve your chances of getting a good job the next time you apply to a job. I've been recruiting people for years now, and I can definitely say when a potential recruit comes to an interview and he shows that he has done several open source projects, it automatically gives him a better chance because I know that he's involved and he has an open mind and he's trying new stuff and he's trying to think outside of the square, as they say. So let's talk about the 7 reasons which are actually holding you back from building your first open source. And actually, I've talked to several people who also took a long time to build their first open source. And I also kind of asked myself what was holding me back from the time I started developing until I released my first open source. And I came up with like 7 big questions that were frequently asked by people. The first one was, I don't have a good idea. So it's okay. The first thing you should probably do is go into the shallow water and start by contributing. You don't have to build the next Redux or TypeScript or whatever big open source project you can think of. You can start with something small. There are sites like Code Triage and Up for Grabs. And if you go to that URL in GitHub, great for new contributors, it actually shows a bunch of repos which are very friendly for new contributors and really want their help to help their projects. And you should probably start with thinking of a small and simple issue that you want to solve, which will also have, hopefully, a simple solution for your everyday problems. This is actually my first pull request into open source. It's a little hard to see. The code doesn't matter so much. It's a really simple pull request, and it's from 2013. I was using Ruby on Rails back then, and I was actually using some API for managing Trello. And I needed another small functionality from this open source library, which I was using. And instead of contacting the developer and telling him, hey, I need this and this and this, I basically cloned the repo, and I did a very small, tiny pull request. You can see it's like 3 lines and 1 test. And that was my first baby step into the world of open source. So you can start small. It doesn't have to be something huge. I'm afraid from negative reactions about my code. So most of the community is here to help, right? We're all in this together. If we're working together, we can make better code, better products, better experience for everyone. So don't worry about it. The feedback will help you grow. Like I said, even negative feedback, it's good. If everybody tells you everything is fine, 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 you're not going to grow. You only grow from constructive criticism, and then you can make better stuff and better code. And the last thing is, well, haters are going to hate, right? So, c'est la vie. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, you know, some people are just going to, yeah, it's a little hard to see the GIF there, but, you know, they hate us because they ain't us, right? Okay, I'm afraid I'll be ignored. So, yeah, that can happen. I mean, it doesn't have to be something huge and major and life-changing. It can be something really, really small. But even something really small, if it helps somebody else's with his problem, basically that's going to save him a lot of time, and it's going to really help his day. I think it will take a lot of time and effort. So basically, you can start again with contributing something really small. And you can also start with something which will pay itself in the long run. So, for example, if you're doing something repetitive all the time, and you're thinking, there's a shortcut here, there's something I can develop, and it will make this easier and better, and I don't have to repeat myself, then yeah, you're going to invest some hours, days, or weeks, I don't know, at first doing this. And then once it's done, it's going to save a long time. So in the long run, it's going to be really great for you and save a long time. And it's really, you should really try to do it also, like, get started with company time. Most of us here, we have jobs, and it's okay. So usually the problem that you want to solve and save time on it, it should be related to your work. So then it's easier to tell your employer, I need to focus on this for a little while because it's going to save us time in the long run. Important. And every open source project will fail or succeed if it has decent documentation. I mean, each one of us has at least once in his life went to GitHub and saw a repo, and it wasn't documented at all, and it took you about 5 seconds to hit that X button at the top of the tab and go to the next repo, which will help you actually with your problem. You can see here some examples with some people like major contributors to GitHub. This guy is from Babel, Kittens, on, and Brett from Python, and we have here Orta from CocoaPods, and they all say, and it's really important that you focus on documentation. And it's really, that's what they do mostly in these projects a lot. They spend a lot of time on that. You can also see here, and this is when I talk about your employers again, right? This is, it's kind of hard to see because of the sun, but these are the top 10 companies which contributed to open source in 2017. And you can see here Google and Red Hat and Amazon and Facebook and so many other great companies, and they're all here. And basically, these companies already figured out and already understand the importance of open source. So most likely, they will want you to do this and invest time in this. I'm here, and I also have a talk on Sunday about some open source I built here at Wix. And they gave me the free hand just to do it because they understand how important it is. I'm not looking for a job right now. So it's okay. And even if you are thinking that you want to do this just because you want a job, well, think about it. Usually when you start looking for a job, it's like a month or two before you actually change jobs. And if you go to an interview and you show them, here is my open, and I just started it like a couple of months ago, that's not going to look so great. You want to invest in something and make it a little longer and more attractive to recruiters. Another one, and another one. I don't like promoting myself on Twitter. Well, you can start with a pen name, like Kittens here. He's the main contributor in Bubble. It doesn't have to. You don't have to expose yourself if you don't want your name out there. That's fine. You can also, if we're talking about Medium or writing blog posts, that's also fine. Your English is not so well, or it's not so good, and you don't want to write long blog posts, you can ask for a friend to help you, or maybe there's a tech writer in your company which can help you with that. And last thing, there's also about talking about stuff like that on stage. If it's not your thing, don't do it. It's fine. You don't have to go on stage in front of hundreds of people and tell them how great your code is. It's fine. Just do it, benefit the other stuff from it, and you can still do it and succeed without talking on stage on it. I don't feel confident enough with somebody else's code. So there are actually two kinds of documentation, right? There's the documentation that you write when you want people to consume your library, basically how to use it. So if I'm talking about Bubble again, for example, so it's how to use Bubble, the CLI, and so on and so forth. But there's also the internal documentation and the guides on how to contribute. Right? This is intended for us, for the people who want to contribute to this library. So it's really going to help you get off the ground and contribute without having fear of messing something up. And lastly, I mean, the community is here to help you. I mean, if somebody came up to you and told you, hey, I want to help you for free to write your passion project, you're obviously going to say, hell yeah, and you're going to help them on their way. You're not going to be, not a nice guy and, not let them help you, right? Okay, so we're here in the last part, and let's talk about starter tips, like the do's and do nots of creating your first open source. So, like I said before, start with something really simple and useful just for you. Even though you think it's just for you, it's probably going to be useful for other people. You're not a unique unicorn. Other people have the same issues as you. This is my first open source project I created myself. It's from like 5 or 4 years ago. It was also when I was doing Rails, and we had an issue there. There's anybody knows Rails here? Like used Rails somewhere? Yes, I miss Rails. And so in Rails, there's a thing called rake tasks. Basically, it lets you manipulate data in the database. And you can generate this task, and then you would run this task. And then after you did this, we would run around in my company. This was my previous company. We would run around the room or write messages in, I think it was HipChat back then. Hey, everybody, you need to run this task. But then somebody would miss it, or he'd be sick, or something like that. He would miss it, and then the entire repo doesn't work for him. And it wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy. So I created this little gem. It's like a plugin for Ruby. And basically, it automatically lets you know when you need to run these tasks. So it wasn't a lot of effort, but it solved a really important issue for us, and it saved a lot of time in the long run. So again, something small which really paid itself in the long run. Have good short documentation. Again, the two types, also for people who want to consume your library, and also for contributors who want to join and take their first steps in helping you. And the next point is aim for 100% test coverage. I think this is really important. It's hard to get 100% coverage, but if you're starting a new project and it's small, then there's a really higher chance that you can do it, right? Because it's really small, and if you are into TDD, you should probably start with TDD and then make sure you're 100%. And there are so many tools today that let you find out how much coverage percent you have. And the higher percent of coverage that you have, the higher the chance that other people will consume your project and will use it, because they will have the confidence that it's maintained and that it's bulletproof, right? Test your library using a CI. That goes without saying. And since you were talking about open source, I think every CI platform, Travis, Jenkins, and so on, Semaphore, I think they're all free if you're doing open source. So just hook that right into GitHub, and immediately when you do a push into GitHub or whatever you're using, GitLab, I don't know, then the CI will run and you'll know if your tests are failing or not. Don't let it die, okay? There are so many projects which basically just die over time because the developer lost interest or went into focus on something else, and the project just dies there, and you see that the last commit was like 2 or 3 years ago, and then the project just dies and nobody else will look at it. So if you have an idea and you actually built it and you're actually invested the time in doing it, then try to keep an open mind and see how you can keep it fresh, how you can add more ideas to it. Even once in a while, try to think of a small new feature just to keep it alive. And then, who knows, one day maybe it will, gain traction, it will become popular again. Answer issues in a timely manner. So luckily, if you build something and people are actually using it, then the people are going to open issues on it. Hey, this doesn't work. Maybe you should add this and do that. So I think, well, the sound sounds kind of weird now. So yeah, if somebody opens an issue, try to answer them in a timely manner. Don't wait a long time because they will lose interest. Try to answer them, try to be precise, be polite, and if you can, try to convince them to contribute themselves. That's the best thing. If they contribute, they'll add more code, more ideas, and if you have a CI connected to this repo, then you have the confidence that they also didn't break tests, and hopefully the coverage was not broken or even raised if you didn't have 100% before. Actually, I would like to conclude this talk with an example of this guy, Henry Zhu. Anybody know who this is? Only one. Kudos. Two. Okay, that's okay. Most people don't know him. So Henry is a nice guy, and about let's see, 2015, so like 3 years ago, he made his first pull request to Bubble. Everybody knows Bubble, right? Yeah, okay. He made his first pull request to Bubble, and I know it's a little hard to because of the sun, but the pull request here is just changing this function to ES6. It doesn't do anything. That's all he did. Even the pull request called more ES6. So that was his first pull request to Bubble, and he actually became the maintainer of Bubble after a while. And this is a post not so long ago, March 2nd, where he actually said that I've left my job to work on open source full time. And basically, he left his job, and he's now doing Bubble and other open source completely on his own without anybody else being his boss. He's getting donations on Patreon and stuff like that, so feel free to donate to him. And basically, it shows you that you can start something small, and if you keep an open mind and you keep pushing it, maybe you'll get something nice and a good idea, and hopefully people will benefit from it as well. That's it. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, right here. Sorry? My own? Yeah, I have several projects of my own. Yeah, so even if I talk about the first thing I did, like 4 or 5, the question was when I started doing my first open source, did I ask help from other developers? So the answer is absolutely. When you start, I think that no matter how smart you are, there's somebody else that's smarter than you. And when I started, I was really a newbie in the world of development, and I asked a lot of help from, back then it was the CTO of the company, and another guy which I really trusted, and I liked his opinion. And they helped me formulate it and make it more readable, and they were also my guinea pigs. I let them try this out first, and basically the bugs, they found the first bugs, and that's how I started off. Sorry? Okay, yeah. So I did. That's what I said. I built a couple of stuff for React Native, and that was actually a couple of years ago. And thankfully I'm still getting like issues and pull requests every once in a while, even though I haven't done React Native for like 2 years, I think. But it's still fun after a while getting some stuff. And actually, actually I forgot to put something in the presentation. I actually got an email from a mom in the US that said that she was impressed by something and that I did one of the components, and she was inspired, and now she's doing it like full time thanks to that. So actually, that's a good point, and I need to add it to the presentation for next time. Thank you.